A new start. That's what both of our lessons are about today. Abram, not yet Abraham, is asked by God to head out. Just go. God will show Abram the way. And men have been eschewing maps ever since. You know. That's why we now have Google Maps, and you don't have to pretend like you don't actually want to look at the map. It'll just tell you over the car. But Abram set out. God said, go, I'll show you the way, and Abram, lock, stock, and barrel. Now, it's one thing when we think about, well, he packed up the house and he went. He didn't just pack up the house like we do. He had flocks of various things. He had servants. This was not just call in and get a big U-Haul. This was huge. And he packed it all up, the tents and everything, which meant every time they stopped, they had to pitch the tent and get out what they needed, and this was going to be a big deal. And Abram went, yeah, okay, and off he went. And his nephew Lot came with him, and his wife Sarai. They didn't have to pack up the baby stuff, because at this point, Abram and Sarai don't have children. The lectionary says to read verses 1 to 4a, just the first half of verse 4. Just as an aside, the second half of verse 4 says Abram was 75 when this happened. He packed everything up and started to wander in the wilderness because God said so. Okay. So why are we hearing about it? What's the big deal? Well, in Abram's time, having one single God was unusual, and having that single God actually speak to you was virtually unheard of. Abram was experiencing something brand new to his people. So maybe you can imagine Abram thinking, I'm hearing voices. Clearly I'm too tired. Clearly there's too much going on. I'm overwhelmed. I'm hearing voices. At least that's what I do. But Abram thought, I'm hearing the voice of God. You put a capital G on that. The God. I better respond. So he went to his wife. Now he's 75, so you can imagine how old she is. Said, we're moving. Oh, where are we going? I don't know. We're just moving. Right. And how long will it take to get where you don't know? I don't know. Do you know which road we're taking? No. I'm going with you? Well, that was the plan. I can only imagine. Shaking her head, but she does it anyway. If that isn't faith, I don't know what is. And it was faith in a God that Abram didn't really know very well yet. But something caused him to trust and to go. For me, the big part of trusting and going, as Abraham did, or Abram at the time, was God's promise. Did you catch the promise of God in this? You will be a blessing. You will be a blessing. The blessing of Abram is sitting right here today. From you, all the nations will come. And you will be a blessing. Wow. Have I been a blessing lately? Depends on who you ask, probably. Have you been a blessing lately? Do we even know what being a blessing looks like? Well, if we read this passage, it sounds like being a blessing is trusting in God, having faith in God to lead you where you need to be. That's not always easy, is it? There are times in life where following where you think God's calling you can be difficult. I was told at 16 I was going to be a minister. The person who told me that was told, I really like you and I don't know you very well, but you're nuts. That person literally danced at my ordination. I think it was the I told you so dance. But I needed time to allow myself to follow and trust in the call of God. We're about to have our annual meeting. If we look back at however many years ago, people in this area saw a need to gather together to help one another, trust in and follow God's call. Like Abram, they became a blessing. And we reap their blessings now. For we are still here enjoying their legacy of what it means to trust and follow. And while annual meetings are a time for looking backward, celebrating how the last year went, they're also a time to look forward to what comes next. Abram and Sarai didn't know what came next. They knew it had to do with the call of God. They knew it had to do with going someplace different, doing something different. And they went. Years later, hundreds of years later, Jesus has a conversation with Nicodemus where he basically says, you need to start over and follow the call of God. He doesn't use the same words, but he reminds Nicodemus that we are God's people and we're called to follow. And in order to do so, we need to allow the Spirit to work in us. That's the legacy we're inheriting every time we look back or ahead in our own community of faith. Someone started over. Someone let the Spirit move. How are you going to let the Spirit move in you? This day or other days? How are you going to let the Spirit work in you? How are you going to answer the call? How are you going to begin again? With focus on God, with faith, with the help of the Spirit, we can all continue to be a blessing as we follow God's call. Amen.